All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We will call the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education work session for May 20th, 2024 to order. All board members are present with the exception of Andrew DeWitt, who has an excused absence. First up, we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is approval of our agenda. With motion. So moved. Motion from Dawn. Support from Nick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First up is recognition of visitors and hearing of people present.
One tonight, Jennifer.
Hello. I haven't made it to the last couple of meetings due to crazy sports schedule and of course my son's upcoming graduation. Despite him not attending HPS, I would like to thank all of those involved in the graduation planning. I cannot even fathom how crazy this last month has been for you all. And as a parent of a 2024 graduate, I thank you for your dedication to making this a core memory for all participants. Which reminds me, I need to buy waterproof mascara. But back to the task at hand. At the bottom of today's agenda, it has board goals listed as a topic of discussion, and I'm excited to hear what goals our board members might be setting for themselves. One of the goals suggested by a community member at the last meeting was to focus on celebrating and honoring our teachers. And based on the SOAR 5 data, unfortunately, that is a space for development. Also, all of our board members, except for one, was able to attend teacher appreciation events, so thank you for that. Instead, Mark spent the day at the polls volunteering to help with the millage election. Also, thank you for that. Thank you to all of our board members and our superintendent for helping promote the millage and our schools. But before I finish my public comment, I would like to say one thing from the end of last meeting's roundtable. If you can imagine, please think about how you would feel if I came before you all now and shared personal information about a board member without their consent. How would that make you feel? What if, offhandedly, I reported to the county clerk that Mark Davis was joking about election tampering and influencing voters while he was volunteering at the polls? Mark, no means no. And perhaps you're not used to hearing that, so I'll repeat it to you again. No means no. Your actions were inappropriate and unprofessional at the end of last meeting's roundtable, and to quote Taylor Swift's boyfriend's teammate, you should stay in your own lane. Barb, as president, if you haven't already, I'm expecting you to address his comments and assure our administration and our teachers that Mark will not share personal information or abuse his power. Lastly, June is Pride Month. So that's exciting. I look forward to seeing board members and administrators wearing pride pins or supporting our LGBTQIA students in another way. Please let me know if you need any swag. Thank you.
All right. First up is our discussion items, and the first one is our professional learning communities.
So we've talked at length about professional learning communities. As a board, obviously as an administrative team, we'd like to share some, just kind of do a refresher with some of the PLC work that has taken place, and then talk about some of the excitement for next school year and how we can continue this extremely important work. So Amy and Kathy will go from here.
So just starting from the big picture, we have some strategic planning goals, which as you know, we use data to arrive at. There's 4 goals that you see listed up here. Under long-term, we have explore increased opportunities for struggling students, investigate increased opportunities for advanced learners, and then under ongoing, it's really around our professional learning communities work and our multi-tiered systems of support work, as well as professional learning. So this is really an update on some of the journey, as well as where we would like to go next with some of this work as it connects to our strategic plan. So what is a professional learning community? We'll probably toggle back and forth between saying professional learning community and PLC, but a PLC is the process of never let me start over. The PLC process is a never-ending process in which educators commit to working together to ensure higher levels of learning for every student. Certainly that aligns with our mission statement and certainly back to our strategic planning goals. Really within a professional learning community, collaborative teams, so let me give you an example from the high school English department. They operate as a department, but they also have then collaborative teams within each of those departments. So there might be a small team of teachers as part of the ELA department that also function as a collaborative team because they teach the same course. So they might teach 2 Lit, for example, and if Kathy and I are on that 2 Lit team, we would be considered a collaborative team. And the primary function of a collaborative team is really to work in this inquiry-based model around 4 guiding questions. The first question is, what should students know and be able to do? And to ensure, using that example, that Kathy and I are crystal clear on exactly what we need students to know and be able to do within our 2 Lit course. And then how will we assess progress towards mastery? And what does proficiency look like? And agreed upon within our collaborative team that this is what proficiency looks like, as well as then moving on to when we identify students who have not mastered that particular standard or skill, how will we respond when students are struggling? Whether that be responsively tomorrow in our class because of formative assessment that we gave today, or as part of seminar or WIN or FLAX is what we also call it at the middle school level, but then for teachers to be able to request students to say, these students need additional support and time for learning and mastering this skill, or question 4, how will we respond when students excel? And so those are the 4 guiding questions that really are at the heart of what a collaborative team does with their time together.
All right, so as we consider the why of PLC, we're going to take a few moments to reflect on the research that has anchored our vision and work in PLC. So Amy might have mentioned John Hattie before in a previous presentation, but just as a reminder, he is a prominent education researcher who has conducted a meta-analysis including hundreds of studies with over 80 million students. And in that study, or in those studies, he worked to determine effect sizes for 195 influences on student achievement. And he uses this barometer to measure it. So the higher the effect size, the greater impact it has on student achievement. The hinge point that he calls it is at 0.4. So anything above 0.4 is a zone of desired effect. So he ranked 195 influences with these effect sizes, whatever assignment that they have been, and the effect sizes. Okay, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. It's okay. So the winner, so to speak, out of those 195 was collective teacher efficacy. And you can see the hinge point there is 0.4, and it had an effect size of 1.57. So it blew the needle off the barometer and really has shown to have a high impact on student achievement. So what is collective efficacy? So specifically, it is the combined belief that it is the teachers that cause the learning, combined with the action of working together, and fed with the evidence that through their actions, they are impacting student learning. It is through teachers reflecting on teaching practice and implementing plans to positively impact student learning that collective efficacy is developed and realized. Collective efficacy is what's happening on our collaborative teams when they're engaging in the professional learning process. So they are working through the questions that Amy just detailed, and they're having these types of conversations. They're developing collective teacher efficacy. So we know that it's powerful for students based on Hattie's research, but we also know that it's really supportive of teachers. Teaching can feel like you're in silos sometimes. It can feel pretty lonely at times. There has been, a couple of years ago, an article in Education Week about teacher retention, where it indicated that 44% of teachers were considering leaving the profession in the next 2 years, which is scary. Looking at Jan, scary. So, but
But if it was less lonely, if I were a part of a collaborative team engaging in the professional learning community processes, really developing our collective teacher efficacy as we do that, I would feel less lonely. I might just stay. So it's powerful for students and student achievement, but also very supportive for teachers.
So the professional learning communities journey has started a couple years ago. Quite honestly, in Hudsonville, there has been previous work prior to me arriving around professional learning communities. Professional learning communities work through an organization called Solution Tree, has been around for decades. I've attended multiple in my career as a teacher, as a building level leader, and then certainly in my role as an assistant superintendent, attended multiple professional learning opportunities around what professional learning communities look like and sound like and feel like, all the details about how to make them run. However, pre-COVID, there was some desire by teacher leaders and administrators to kind of pick some of that work back up, if you will. And of course, that was shut down. It was literally the spring of COVID that it was shut down. And so we lifted that back up in the summer of 2022 with 30 administrators and teachers going to a conference in Grand Rapids, and felt very inspired, and all of the things that Kathy just mentioned with regard to none of us as educators can do this work alone. We have to lean on each other and the knowledge and experience that each of us bring to the table. And so that then really launched us into utilizing our time in 22-23 school year on early release days to dive into what this might look like and explore that with teachers and the teacher leaders and administrators who are passionate about trying to pick this work back up, and what does that mean. This is complex work, and quite honestly, it's happening around the county. So Grand Haven, Jenison, multiple districts in our area are engaging in this work, and as administrators and myself were grappling and trying to lead this important work, we started reaching out to other districts, right? That's how we collaborate in Ottawa County. It's a beautiful thing. Like, what does this look like for you? Some of those districts were utilizing consultants from Solution Tree, which is the organization that really provides a lot of professional learning around this, and they were utilizing consultants to come into districts and support teachers and administrators, because we're all learners. We can't possibly all know all things, right? And so creating that opportunity then was really the vision for this year. So that was developed throughout last year, started some of the work, but knew that this is a heavy lift if we want to, what they call it really is moving from PLC light to PLC right. So not just saying you're a professional learning community and kind of doing the work, but like really doing the work. And what does that mean? So we've been consulting this year with a gentleman named Josh Ray, who has been providing not only support on early release days in the morning for administrators and teacher leaders, kind of prepping us for those afternoons and guiding us and answering questions. He actually has experience, he's from Arkansas, and he has experience at multiple levels, elementary, middle school, and high school as an administrator, and has led this work with some pretty profound student achievement outcomes and a real short turnaround. And so he has been a great addition to the dialogue and learning that we've been doing as a team. Throughout this year though, and even at the beginning of the year, teachers continued and administrators continued to say, early release time for this learning is great, but really to work the inquiry cycle, going from a month and us looking at formative assessment data about what students did or knew or didn't know the last time we assessed, and not meeting for another month, is not nearly the responsiveness that we want or need to ensure that our students are making progress towards the standards that we want them to master. So there continued to be this tone and wish for more time. How do we get more time to do this work? And so an additional piece of the professional learning community journey, we took a group to Ally Stevenson, which is in Illinois. We took a group of 15 teachers and administrators to really a fishbowl experience where we were able to collaborate with teachers in another district in Illinois, which is really the founding school where this work was developed. Quite honestly, they've been doing it for 25 plus years, and they say it's still a work in progress. And so it was a great opportunity for us to continue to learn alongside others. And really two of the biggest takeaways were really about teachers not working in a silo, Some of our high school teachers in particular felt super passionate that in a high school our size, like this work just makes sense because sometimes colleagues don't even see each other because they're in different parts of the building. And so how do we build in that intentional time to do this work meaningfully for that human connection aside from the workload that we have as teachers to ensure all kids are successful? And then finally, that leads into the all means all. That was the additional takeaway. Like, we really do mean all means all. All students deserve to have our very best as teachers and from our teacher teams each and every day. And so how do we create space and time for teachers to tend to that while really ensuring that we support every student in every way that we can, whether that's with intervention supports or extension opportunities as well. Specifically, this journey has really been with secondary teachers in particular. At the elementary level, a lot of this work has happened quite organically because of the multi-tiered systems of support that happens. They've been providing that intervention time on a regular basis for many years. And so the additional caveat to that is we also are adopting a new math curriculum and really trying to manage that teacher capacity so we don't have 44% of our teachers leaving, and just knowing that there's a lot of heavy lifts that teachers do. Some of our teachers are very interested in doing some of this learning, but also trying to manage that with a lot of the other things that we've been focusing on from a teaching and learning perspective at the elementary level.
So that said, we've been working very closely with the Ann and the HEA, Amy, the department leaders from the secondary level. That is our biggest challenge. I was a middle school teacher back in the day, and we had teaming, which means every day I met with a team. We don't have that structure, and quite frankly, that's a major undertaking, particularly at the high school level, but the middle school also. So we're going to allocate 2 times a month on Wednesdays for our secondary teachers to get together. We laid this out as kind of a pilot idea of what this would look like, and that one of the first comments that we asked our teachers, by prioritizing these 2 times a month, tell me what else you want to know, and they want us to know that that's just not enough time. But it's a start, right? It's a start to build consistency, to build, really to talk about the importance of this work on a consistent basis. Meeting once a month or every other month based on our early release days just wasn't getting the consistency with our teachers that they really need. By the time they're getting together, a unit might be over. They don't have a chance to talk about the unit, to reteach or teach. Some kids already know it. Some kids don't. A lot of times we teach to the kids that are in the middle, and now we're trying to teach to both ends to make sure we get everybody. So we're setting up times right now. We're looking at 2 Wednesdays a month. Transportation will look the same at this point as we're working through it. So the kids will still come to school and going home the same time. But our teachers, when they, at the end of the day, if they're released a little bit early, the kids, some kids would go home, some would stay at school, being supervised, and then they would go home as we work through this work. I think long-term solution, we would like to do something similar to several districts in the area where maybe we do this more on a regular basis, and maybe our half days aren't as impactful if we do it on a regular basis, that we don't have to have half days every month, and maybe we do those every other month. So instead of 13 half days, maybe we go to 6 or 7 half days and then do this work on a regular basis. So we're gonna give this a shot in the fall. We feel very confident. We've had very long conversations with our principals about what this looks like. With our staff is excited that they're going to be able to do this work, quite frankly, with fidelity on those every other twice a month and going from there. So wanted to share that with the board, what questions you might have regarding not only the PLC work is, which I think Amy and Kathy laid out in detail, all the work that's gone into this, but then what this looks like for our teachers and our students moving forward. So questions?
So can you talk a little bit about, so thanks for the update, really good and informative, and the why in terms of improved teacher efficacy across teachers is clear. Can you provide a little, let's see, can you provide a bit of a case study in terms of, okay, today we do this, in the future, in the future, maybe 2 years from now, I don't know, but a target state, a to-be state would look like this. Here's how you'd see a difference in terms of, not student achievement, but in terms of teacher interaction.
Teacher interaction
Yeah.
would be regular team meetings, really leading back to the 4 guiding questions about a lot of clarity around exactly what it is students need to know and be able to do. High conversation and dialogue, which has already started around rigor and what does proficiency look like. So teachers are even rewriting some assessments in order to ensure the rigor is there that matches really what we want students to be able to know and be able to do on state assessments and SATs, and really to be life ready, if you will, outside of the classroom. From a structural perspective, as Dr. Vanderjagt said, it could look like weekly meetings where, as part of their weekly work, they are meeting in collaborative teams, diving into this and providing additional supports and extensions for students who need them. Did that answer your question, Mr. Hall?
Yes, yeah, and then maybe a little bit deeper, and that's by curriculum, it's by grade, it's by wherever we decide the collaboration needs to occur.
Absolutely.
Because we're seeing the data's telling us we have gaps in performance. Is that how we-
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna form this sort of a collective collaborative team over here and this one over here,
Yes.
and follow the data and see what the data tells us.
Follow the data, see what the data tells us. I would also add that part of the survey that Dr. Vanderjagt mentioned also asked a question of all of our staff in May. So we had 179 secondary staff responding, basically sharing that they wanted additional learning around those high leverage instructional practices, which is also some of John Hattie's work. And so there's an opportunity for reflection based on the data, adjustments to instruction, continued learning. I did this, that worked. Oh, I tried that, that didn't work. That comes into that collective efficacy piece. So it's constant review of data and adjusting to meet students' needs with the support of a collaborative team, not just me doing it all by myself.
And on a consistent basis. I mean, some people do it innately because you have a teaching, or a friend
Sure.
that might teach that. You know,
Yeah,
talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And to build this in so that now there's an expectation, and we can drive these conversations. There's a whole list of, here's what you talk about in your collaborative team, and here's what you don't. It's not,
Let's get together and have coffee.
yeah, it's not a, hey, how was your night last night? Did you go? It's, these are intentional conversations, structured in such a way that it's not like, hey, I gotta take off and go do, no, this is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
This is the work we're doing.
So in some respects, it's almost like a little bit of mentoring then as well. I mean, when I think about where our staff is as far as ages and degrees of teaching and how often they've done it, the thing that really excites me is sort of that cross-age connection. Because as you get more used to it and you're used to teaching this with this other math teacher, and then 10 years from now you've got these different teachers who have different ideas, the fact that then they can pick the best of all of these options, I think that's phenomenal.
It's super powerful.
It's the both ends, right? It's the
Yeah.
experience of
Yeah.
me being here, but it's also the, hey, what about this? And
Yes.
it's like the new one, the new people coming in
Exactly.
have some great ideas.
Exactly.
And it's all data informed. So we're
Mhm.
looking at all of the data and like, what are you doing? Like your kids like nailed that.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you teach that? And it's a beautiful thing.
What kind of data would inform, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a range, I know there's not one set of data, but what would be some examples of the data that we use?
Formative assessments, so like quick checks on understanding, like daily along the way, and then when you come together, you look at your formative assessment data to see how your kids did. And then you have those kind of conversations with other teachers, but also you create a plan of action. Okay, these kids are far from proficient, what do we need to do for them? And when might we do that? And these kids are advanced, and how might we extend their learning around this standard? And then the kids in between.
So then this also is, you take the RAM stuff once a year, you look at the data, this is ongoing
It's
data
ongoing.
assessment.
Mhm.
Very interesting.
Kathy and Amy, I think this is wonderful. I'm glad to see that you're doing this. We have learning communities where I work, and it's great that they're structured because they need to be structured, but they can be wonderful. And I would agree with the teachers, boy, if they could meet weekly, it would be wonderful. if there
We
was
are-
some way.
We're structured with some time, and I think that's what the challenge has been, working
Yeah.
closely with our constraints of our agreement.
Yeah.
And they've been great working through it, because you've got those that are looking at that structure, and others are like, but we need more. And we also want to be cognizant of the time in the classroom.
Yeah.
So you can't just meet all the time and expect the kids to learn on their own, so we've got that balance. And I think we have some great ideas moving forward, and it gives us some time to try this out. We're looking at the end of the day from a structure standpoint, primarily because, quite frankly, at the end of the day, sometimes kids leave early for sporting events. Sometimes it's like, okay, we can do it then, and we have staff, they're already there. So we're working through some of those structures. We have some hurdles we're working through with our partners from the Christian school, because we have transportation that we're trying to work through. But I think our secondary administrators have some great ideas of how to make sure that kids are in a good spot too. So it's exciting.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have our Sex Education Advisory Board new board member.
Yes, so, in your packet today, let me shift gears real quick here. In your packet today, you have a rubric that hopefully looks familiar to you. The rubric was used as a means on the heels of a needing to reboot our Sex Ed Advisory Board. So this is the Hudsonville Public Schools rubric for application to serve on the Sex Ed Advisory Board. That rubric, we had a member from our Sex Ed Advisory Board who notified us just after, I think it was maybe February-ish, that she needed to step away. And so we needed to work through a process to identify a like partner, if you will, to join the Sex Ed Advisory Board. So we utilized this rubric, once again, to complete on the member who left so that we could calibrate. We also looked at demographics of the individual who was leaving, because there was also intentionality when we did a reboot of our Sex Ed Advisory Board, that we had north side of the district, south side of the district, elementary, middle school, high school parents, all of the demographics within our district represented. So we completed this rubric on the member who left. And then we also took a look at all of those who had applied in February of 2023 and had expressed interest. And so then we found the demographics. It was a south side parent with upper elementary, middle school age parents. We completed the rubric on individuals who fit that demographic, and then found a member who really matched very closely the responses to the survey questions. So we felt very confident that this was going to not create any imbalance of ideas and perspectives. We were very intentional about that when we built the committee, and so based on the questions. And so we did last week as a Sex Ed Advisory Board, we will be making a formal recommendation to all of you to accept the recommendation from the Sex Ed Advisory Board to add Joe Amaral, who is in the audience here this evening. Do you want to just say hello and tell us about your kids and where you live?
Yeah, good evening. I live on 32nd, basically at Ogden, so just inside the school district. My kids are 5th grade and 1st grade at Forest Grove. So my daughter is the oldest, and she's headed into the middle school next year, so very exciting.
He has graciously accepted the invitation, and then the board will be bringing formal recommendation to all of you to add Joe to our Sex Ed Advisory Board at our June board meeting.
You weren't lying when you said south side of the district.
That's
why it sounds good. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, there's like 3 houses between me and the lawn.
Joe or Joel?
Joe.
Joe, okay.
So Joel, can you tell us a little bit about your background or why this interested you back in February 2023 when you applied?
Yeah. I'm West Michigan native. I graduated from Jenison. Went to school up at Michigan Tech. Got a degree in computer science. I write software for a living. Lived in Northern Virginia for 8 years. And then moved back to this area, and specifically Hudsonville, because primarily in the schools. So yeah, I wanted to just have a voice in what my kids were learning, and that's why I had filled out the thing and the survey, and
why participate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Any questions about the process or any questions from the updated? Thank you.
Right, next up is our school nursing program.
So I want to give you a quick update on our nursing program. Years ago, we did not have nursing support in the district. We've talked about that at length for years. We worked with Spectrum, now Corewell, in their nursing program and have employed 1.6 FTEs, so 2 people, one's full-time, one's 3 days a week, providing supports for our buildings. Our true triage people are our administrative assistants. But from a legal standpoint, having a nurse or nurses in the district is just very important when it comes to medical plans for students, consistencies with reports, just a lot of factors. However, I will tell you the administrative oversight costs continue to increase. So we would like to take the nursing program and bring it under Hudsonville Public Schools versus through Corewell. I did speak with a former board member that was instrumental in starting this because I didn't want this to be like, hey, we've done this without communicating at all. And he said, no, it makes complete sense. It saves us about $16,000 a year. The biggest challenge, in all honesty, is if somebody leaves and we have to post the position and find somebody, but have all the confidence in the world, obviously, in Mrs. Armstrong and the work she does from an HR standpoint. Now that we have a system in place, we have expectations, our buildings know what to expect, who to call. It's different now that we have this in place. Meeting with, this was truly something I think they wanted because they have a commitment to Hudsonville Public Schools and they don't want to be bounced all over. They want to be here all the time. So we've worked very closely. We're continuing to work with them on trying to finalize what we consider our contract. Do you remember the conversation about our OCSN, the Ottawa County Schools Network, which was through United Way via the ISD? They're like, we're done with it, so we had to take it on ourselves. This is something very similar, so now we control not only the contracts, but any kind of salary increases or not, the timing, the expectations. They would collect data for the school system like they have done, but they don't have to collect data for an outside organization, which takes a lot of time, a lot of their time. So this is something I think we're excited about. It's been a journey. I think we've been working on this for probably 4 to 6 months. And we're getting to the point by saying, okay, I think we're ready to go now. I did let Corewell know that we are having these conversations as a district. And I would let them know our plan by June 1. So unless, I want to entertain questions. We looked at a whole series of what can they do now and what can they do next. And it all boiled down to inhalers. And that all changes because the law is going to change anyway when it comes to who can carry a quote unquote a generic or an extra inhaler. In the past, they always could, but our buildings just couldn't carry an extra one, so a lot of those are changing. So when you talk about stop the bleed kits, you talk about training for staff, CPR, first aid, all of those conversations, Narcan training. When you look at insulin shot, all of those training can still take place. They're still certified, the expectation to stay certified. And, there's a network of them that they rely on, and it doesn't, with all due respect to our healthcare providers, their network is based on the people they communicate with, not kind of people at the top. So you have Jennison who does their own, Grand Haven, Rockford, that's their network. Their network isn't, I can't talk to that person because they're not part of Corewell. They talk a lot about these things. So that's our plan.
So contract would be kind of like a support staff contractor, not under any other special grouping of people that we have to fulfill certain contract requirements other than what we would state in the initial contract?
That's correct. So they would support our students, right, and staff. I mean, they're not going to be giving me an insulin shot or taking stitches out of a toe that I might have cut, but they're going to provide support services for our students. They will fall under, they'll still report to Andy Thomas, which they have in the past. And that structure looks the same from a contractual standpoint. It looks like the number of days, so it looks different. I mean, snow days might look different because they might have to come in to do some things, or not, depending on the time of year and everything going on. But if you look at them, I would say closer to maybe a middle school principal schedule, because of when they have to come in to start the school year, how they just finish up the school year. But they're a year-round employee, just not working all summer, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
How do we compare 1.6 FTEs to other similar sized districts in the area?
I don't know. We had 0 years ago. We went to 1, and then when the 1 wanted to go to 0.6, we added another 1. I feel, based on conversations with them, that is a good amount. Their heavy lift truly is to start the school year. The medical plans, they're all new across, and you have 900 special ed students, right? So their medical plans, just getting those up and running, training, so forth, is very busy to start the year. I came from a district a little bit larger, maybe 1,000 more kids. We had 1 for the longest time, and then when they were starting to wind down, we hired another 1 so that we didn't have a lapse in service. We did it, and I think they're still running with 1 right now.
Okay.
Some have 2. A lot of it's based on the structure. So it's not, what a lot of times we look at ratios when it comes to school counselors as an example. How many kids do you have? How many counselors do you have? And it's not that simple, because for them, it could be about medical plans. If you have, 2 students that require trachs, it looks a lot different than if you have 0. That's a big shift in one-on-one care, support, triage, all those things. So that does not answer your question.
No,
I don't have the
didn't.
answers.
I didn't need,
It's very, I was just saying that it really varies. There are many districts that don't have a nurse at all.
Mhm.
There are some districts, and I'll just pick on Kennewick Hills. Kennewick Hills has a nurse in every building. Every building. I think they have like 3 or 4 elementaries, like 1 middle and 1 high school. I guess the question I have, Dr. Vanderjack, is will Mandy take responsibility then for any licensure changes? Like checking the LARA website and like.
Yeah, so they're required to have their licenses up to date,
Right.
going from there. So that's part of the job description, what they're doing. So traditionally that would be through Corval, but that goes through us. If they don't maintain it, it'd be similar to a teacher not maintaining their licenses.
Yes, so making sure that you have a copy of their license
Yep.
every other year.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then checking LARA to see if there's any restrictions on their license, because you don't know if they moonlight. So that's like another big issue. Like in the hospital, you're required every renewal to check.
There's a
Sure, and then-
3-year process through NDE
Okay.
to be a licensed nurse. I'm kind of mirroring off of what Grand Haven and Genesee have done. I've talked to them a lot
Good.
about it. So they said it's kind of a lot of, upfront work over the next 3 years that will probably be a little bit of more, double dipping, and then it kind of turns into what we have as administrators and teachers, where it's a 4-year that they have to renew. And so, yeah, I've been looking into that.
Target the start, that's all,
July 1, yeah.
July, okay.
Technically August, but
Yeah.
contractually they'll break service with Corval. Once we tell them. So
You're on camera,
they
so.
they
They're
know
watching.
us, they know it. But I mean, this is a conversation that we still have to have. We still have to settle on a contract and those kind of things. If we're unsuccessful, then I might very well come back in a month and say, okay, give it another year, we'll try to do it again. But right now I think it's the best, not only move for our district, it's about Hudsonville, it's about our kids.
But you've had a preliminary conversation.
Yes.
Any other questions on the school nursing program? All right, moving on to the high school CAD lab PC and monitor purchase recommendation. Mr. Briggs?
Thank you. So this is pretty simple aging equipment. It's part of our long-term technology plan. Sum up the recommendation, we're asking for the purchase of monitors and workstations from people-driven technology in the amount of $66,549. It'll be, if approved, it will be funded by the bond funds. They were purchased in 2016. We recycle everything. If we can find another place in the building that needs it, we'll use it somewhere else or use it somewhere else in the district. In terms of our procurement requirements, it's written in the state law that if you meet you can just go buy computers or equipment off the state MI-deal contract. You've met your purchasing requirements, you're done. That we can get better pricing through the statewide REMC bid. So we use that contract, and it syncs up a little better with the rest of the equipment we have in the district. So yeah, that's it. Monitors and workstations for a total of $66,549. Any questions?
So Pat, talk about people-driven technology for just a moment. I mean, you can go to Dell and order, I'm not suggesting you do this, but order monitors directly. And so what are they, I'm not questioning what we're doing, I'm just asking out of, for understanding, what are they bringing?
Yeah, as opposed to doing Dell Direct.
Yeah, or, yeah.
Yeah, we do buy, because it's really the only way to buy, we purchase that way from Apple. And we have, since I've done it before in Hudsonville, I have purchased directly, recommended purchasing directly from Dell. And there just are certain situations where it's a better deal to go through, through a vendor, through a reseller. So, yeah, Jeff checks that. If you remember, we did the last real intense server work. We did Dell Direct, and we had some issues, and it was more on the technical specifications, speaking to them. It just worked better. It worked better just to have a local rep versus dealing with a big company.
Do they help with setup of the machines and setup of them in school? I mean, do they, configuration of the machines?
People driven?
Yeah.
No, we'll do that.
We'll do that.
And these are desktops. I mean, it's different. We did have them more, like I said, that other purchase we did more, it was a little more engineering specific, but these are things we can handle with our own tech department. I'd imagine if you're buying 500, maybe a different, math might be different on that, but for this amount, it just makes sense to go through someone more local.
Any other questions? All right, Dr.
Thanks.
Vanderjagt, policy updates.
Policy updates. We have several policies for our spring update from Neola. Many of them are language cleanup. I'll try to go through them in reasonable fashion. Please ask questions as we go through if you have questions. I'll start with the first policy, it's 1240. Superintendent evaluation. All of that language is per the language that was changed, similar to the teacher evaluation process. So all that language has changed. Some of the language does impact my the appeal process, all of that, which is done with the teachers, now is all the superintendents. This falls in line with what's required from the state. Maybe Dr. Hooper, do you want to talk about the other now, since we're talking about kind of?
Probably a good idea.
All right, so this is the policy. This has nothing to do with the next topic, so I'm going not off policy, but later we were going to discuss what's called rater reliability. Rater reliability is the people that rate people, making sure they're doing it and it's reliable. The difference between reliability and validity are different. Reliability means that you're making sure that you're assessing the things that you're saying you're going to assess. So with that, all of our administrators have to go through rater reliability because they evaluate teachers. All of our central not all of our central office. Some of our central office, Pat's off the hook. Some of everybody else in our central office has to go through a different set of rater reliability because we evaluate administrators. So I evaluate central office, Amy and Ann, we evaluate building level administrators. And then 2 of our very special central office administrators get to go through another rater reliability because they get to also evaluate some teachers. So Amy and Mandy evaluate teachers also. So they have to go through a different set. On top of that, our Board of Education gets to go through rater reliability for my evaluation. So this is new, I'm going to say this, another unfunded mandate from our legislature because there's a cost to all of these trainings to go through. For the board to go through it, it is recommended by MASB, who's also the governing body that oversees the evaluation, is also the institution that we are paying to run this rater reliability, that we go through it through them collectively. Now, Barb and I, and Nick's had some conversations, but Barb and I have some conversations. It's all over the board and what other districts are doing. Some are like, we don't care, we're not doing it. Some are like, we'll do it on our own when we need to. Some are looking at it and saying, listen, we're going to wait till we have to evaluate our superintendent, and then we're going to go through it to make sure that we have the right board there, because who knows what the board looks like in a year, 2, 5, whatever it is. Anyway, it is recommended by MASB. Again, they're the ones that we're paying to do this as a board. They do have one-offs, online version. I emailed the board in board briefs last week that there's one on June 5th in the evening. There's a couple others that are out there. That was one that was just coming up. It is not an environment in which all 7 of you need to be on your computers from 6 to 9 to know that Ken's in the same room with Greg and with Nick. You're on your own. It's an online version. It's a webinar. One option though is for us to bring somebody in to meet with the board and go through rater reliability. You've done this before with evaluation trainings. The evaluation document is changing. They have not released the document because they don't want to confuse it with the current document that's out there. Because some superintendents have until June 30th to be evaluated during a school year. Most are calendar years, some are school years. I'm going all over the place with this. The bottom line is, as a board, do you want me to try to schedule a training on July?
So the issue is for the board, I think everyone received the email from Jay Bennett, so we're required to have this training done by September 1st. So I reached out to MASB to ask, is Ottawa Area Intermediate School District gonna offer like some sessions? Because it's summer now. And people are busy during the summer and they have vacations and stuff, and it's harder to get everyone together. They had not heard from Ottawa area, and their recommendation was for us to schedule something and to have a consultant come in to do it. And so then there's the cost. So then they have 3 online training dates, June 5th, June 18th, and July 16th. It is covering the new evaluation instrument. But they've said those are really for people who do not attend your overall board training. But as Dr. Vanderjack and I have talked, it's expensive if we bring someone in. Dr. Vanderjack should pay at least $1,000.
Usually.
Plus their mileage, if they have to have food. If we only have 5 board members here, then we have to pay for those other 2 board members to do the virtual training. The virtual training was it $89 or $99? I forget when I looked at it.
I think it's 100.
99, so like, what would you guys rather do? Have someone come in and we try to find a date, we try to find a consultant, or do we attend one of these online sessions?
So what happens, what did they say for districts who well, again, depending on their language, they've been effective or highly effective for so many years. Under the old system, you could say, okay, we're gonna wait another year to do evaluation. My understanding is they also have something similar to that here.
That law hasn't changed.
And so you can do the carryover, right? part of my concern is what happens then when you get new board members on. So we have an election coming up in November. If we all do this training, and does it even make sense to do that training if the next evaluation may or may not happen
Well, just to give
at
you
that point in
a
time?
good question, and to give you an update on that. So potentially 2 new board members, don't know what will happen, but theoretically, they should probably excuse themselves from the evaluation because they haven't been here. Whether they do or not doesn't matter. But I was talking with Dr. Vanderjack, and Nick and I have talked, and there's no reason, Dr. Vanderjack was highly effective. We don't see a reason, and I think the board would support this, to do the full evaluation again. Dr. Vanderjack and I have talked about, yes, he would evaluate his goals that he has. I believe he has 5 goals. We would evaluate those, and then the board, in collaboration with Dr. Vanderjack, would develop new goals. But we wouldn't do the big formal evaluation this year.
So do we have the option then of waiting to do this training until we are doing an evaluation? For a couple of reasons. Number one, for recall of all of us, it's like, gosh, I don't remember how that went, and who knows whether some things changed because some people said this didn't work. And then you will have acclimated to new potentially board members.
Per MASB, we're supposed to have it done by September 1st. So Nick and I are like, do we
Even
want to
if you're
be a
not doing
district?
an evaluation.
We come back and
We're
forth.
required to do this
Sort
training.
of, she's 100% right. And I had this
We're required
conversation
to
with them
do this
also.
training.
I'm like, that makes no sense. So like,
I know, especially, every district is facing elections in November of some sort. We're on this 2 years.
most of the districts I've spoken to in the area are not going through this with their board unless their superintendent is up for evaluation, and they will do it by, the only argument MASB had was if the board changed their mind in September, now you haven't been trained to do an evaluation.
Well, there's no, I hear the MASB says you have to do it by September 1, but that's not a legal requirement. It's a guidance from the MASB. They have it done by September 1. So back to Dawn's point, if we're saying, and I appreciate the position of we don't need to do a full evaluation this year, and we have new board members, and it sounds like other districts are already there going, well, we're not going to do it by September 1. It makes no sense to do it by September 1. Then that's guidance, but now there's nothing in the legislation that I read that says thou shalt have it done.
There
by
is for the
September 1.
teachers.
For the
I don't know
teachers.
about superintendents.
It's been a little,
Gray.
yeah, it's gray.
Mhm.
Dealing with 2 compliant people here that they're really telling us to do this. That's where we lean towards, well, they're providing all this, but yeah, realistically, we're not scheduled to do an eval for 18 months from now. But
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would ask is that I think the rate of reliability, if we don't do it by September 1 and it's not a major ordeal, it probably should take place very early in 2025 because the rate of reliability shouldn't take place right before the evaluation. It should be a year long, right? The whole year of looking at my performance. I do know that some of the documents, they're not quite done with. So I don't know. And I also know this. Robin, when is our meeting in July? I don't have it on top of me.
they haven't even given like why September 1 either. It's like you try to ask questions. It's very like
September 1
lines.
is intentional because if you are evaluated over a school year,
Okay.
then it's September 1 until your evaluation cycle. So they didn't want people to wait until January and say, now we're encompassing the whole year.
Yeah.
So that the September 1 is to make sure when the school year starts, everybody's trained to do it. That's why Ann's working so hard to get our staff, our teachers and our administrators trained before right when school starts.
I would think for you, Dr. Vanderjack, before you're trained, before we have to use a new tool on you, you should have seen it for at least a fair amount of time so that you know what you're being evaluated on. If it changes, I mean, most places you know it a year in advance. I don't think that's fair to you if they're changing something and you don't necessarily know about it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I will say if everybody's here in the July work session and I can schedule it and it takes an hour, that's probably a different conversation. But to Barb's point, if 2 or 3 people are missing and now you're not involved in the dialogue that would happen, so.
July 11th for our regular board.
Okay.
And
We normally don't have a work session in July.
Yeah, I mean, if we do it before September, I'm not hung up on that. I think you addressed the major thing that was in my mind about the evaluation, so thank you for that. And if it's like, well, let's just try and get in, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, we either say there's 2 people that aren't gonna do the next evaluation, or we redo it again in January or February or something, so, but, and if we're all here, and, I mean, don't have strong feelings on that part of it.
Would it be helpful if I tried to look at our August work session to see if everybody is planning on being here, at least 6 out of 7? I don't know what vacations look like in August and July, but
School's back in session.
school's back.
Okay, it's June for me, but.
But if we do it in August and it's an hour, I guess I'd like to find, I don't think
guess
if
how
we-
long is it gonna be?
That's
Because
not
our
a fact.
August work sessions are usually pretty busy,
Yeah.
aren't they?
They usually are, but I will say that over the past several months, we've put a lot into work sessions
Okay.
that I think we're in a different spot than I would say the past few years going into the school. We're gonna have a busy board meeting in August because Ann's gonna hire
Yeah.
people, right?
Well, I guess
to
when you come in June.
Yeah. So, but if I can find out the length, like if it's an hour, that may be reasonable to put in a work session. You can find out who can all be here. If we only have 4, maybe we say, you know what, we're just gonna roll the dice. We'll do it in September or October.
I would say we need to have at least 5 or 6 for the financial aspect of it. If we're gonna pay that much money, wouldn't you guys agree? I mean, let's be,
We'll get a better feel for, if you look at your schedules, we'll
Let's
send
do it
something out this week. We have time. I'll try to find out how long. There is one of the MASB staff members out of Allegan County that I've heard can do this. And the reason Ottawa didn't reach out to MASB is because the superintendents in Ottawa said, we don't want to run this through the ISD. We want to do it, those that are doing it on their own, and most of them are not.
When is our work session in August?
It's like the
We don't
26th.
have our date set yet, because we vote on that in July.
But
I can
traditionally,
tell you
we
the
don't.
tentative date.
26th.
26?
Probably 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah, 26.
That gives me enough guidance.
yeah, why don't we do that
Is that
then?
okay? We'll
that's
stay in
great.
contact.
Yeah.
Right, that had nothing to do with policy, but that was part of the superintendent evaluation. So any questions on
It linked right to it.
it? Did. So any questions on the, and we had to have the conversation. So any questions on the policy? Oftentimes, I know, keep in mind, we'll bring this to you as a first reading. If you have questions between now and then, please reach out. After then, still, and then we'll have second. And then policy number 2410 and 2414 are kind of tied together. The language, number 1, 2410 is dropped. 2414 simply changes the conversation about what you legally can and cannot have a conversation with kids. So you can see that's kind of tweaked.
So just getting back to 2410,
Yes.
it says at the bottom legal so are you saying that it's a legal reason why we had to remove that?
Legal reasons why it wasn't initially there, that should be stricken too. So it was there for legal purposes. It's no longer there because it's no longer
Okay,
required.
So the law has changed.
The law's changed.
but do we have a choice if we still want to restrict referrals? I guess is what I'm saying.
I think it would be, I don't know if it would be in our best interest to discipline somebody for making a referral when we don't have a legal stance to do it.
No, this is.
Did I say that right?
Am I understanding this right? This is prohibiting us from a referral.
It was
Previously.
previously.
And I'm just trying to put this in context with what's happened federally as well as what's happened in the state. And is that all connected here? Is it, I guess I'm trying to put all those pieces together. Because if in the past we had this policy based on current law and now we're removing it because of current law, that makes sense to me. But if we're removing it because it doesn't match with something else, I want to know what it doesn't match with.
It's your first. It's removing it because it's no longer current law.
Okay,
And this was instituted because it became a law in 2018?
18 or 19.
gotcha. And this is Michigan law, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's no obligation to inform parents.
There still is, it's just worded, it's on the second page.
I
It's up-
saw that as
Yeah.
far as reproductive health.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it with regard to making a recommendation for an abortion.
We have, in the past, it was illegal to do it, we have no, that's still a conversation that the council would have with a parent, it depends on the situation. Yep. 2414, you can see the changes based on the same. Twenty-four 18, same thing, but it's the very last sentence that's stricken from that. (3220), there's a typo, number 4 on page 9 on your. Oh, yeah, I'm
I can
sorry.
look it up myself, but I think it would
Sorry.
be helpful for the legal annotation for all the board members to see what that is.
On the bottom,
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
38015, the 38169, and 3881766. Because not everybody probably knows how to look those up. But at least for me, it would be helpful to look at that, to wrap my mind around that. Because to me, this seems like a really big change, but I know we've also had a lot of changes in Michigan law. So just to see the connection would be helpful for me.
sounds
You're
good.
asking
agree
for-
on that?
You're asking for the law of reference that makes this change necessary?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that probably would be helpful.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
I struggle with
Don't we have it?
these a little bit.
Not that it would change anything, but it would be nice.
Exactly. It's easier to make a connection when the question's asked.
I think it's in there. No, we can definitely get that.
Okay.
I'm looking past Ann, sorry, to Robin. We have it in the legal documentation before we meet with the to go through from there, so I just wanted that reference. That might clarify not only the law changes, but the necessity to change these policies.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's all 3 of those policies. Then I'll get that for you. 3220, is a typo on the number 4 on, I think it's C4 on the top page. You can see that, it's a minor thing. Same with 6320, it's just a language cleanup. I'm not trying to do these too quick, but they're just language cleanup. 6321, same thing as is 6325. I was gonna give you a prize if you can find the language, the typo in 6325. It's hard to find. It's under B2, the last paragraph, which would be on page 20 of your handout. The word that is stricken. All that for, yeah. Okay. 6350, it's a prevailing wage language. I will, Pat Briggs has a new title as the prevailing wage coordinator.
I wondered if that was going to be Mr. Briggs.
You get a pay raise for that?
Yep.
That's what I was LinkedIn profile, that's for sure.
It all varies, right, with construction. It could very well be, your construction manager. I mean, there's different people that will be the prevailing wage coordinator. Make sure that's all.
Last time, before they got rid of the prevailing wage law, they moved the responsibility over to the district head to do it. Because forever, we didn't do it. We just had, the SEAB did it. And then all of a sudden we had to run reports, so we had to learn how to pull the report from the Department of Labor.
Another unfunded mandate.
With the payroll deduction on 6520, that's something that's bargainable. However, our policy didn't even allow, so even if they bargained to do it, we had a policy that didn't allow it, so we had to update the policy. So now it is an allowable deduction if it's negotiated that way. So that changes 6520. And then 8800 is the ceremonies, observances. A lot of this stems from the coach that was either fired or tried to out in Seattle, I think it was, maybe Bremerton, Washington. that they held a prayer after a football game, and they said the coach was organizing it, therefore it was a major deal. This goes to the fact that students have the rights to organize and do events and hold events, whether it's a prayer at the flag, whether it's a moment of silence, whether it's something that takes place that's student organized. That doesn't mean staff can't be there to monitor for student safety, but students still have the right to organize and have religious expression on their own, and we do it now. So.
Dr. Vandercheck.
Yes.
It really doesn't state the whole wording of it, so we can look it up and.
Okay. We'll get with Ann and pick out, not this Ann, different Ann, and get through the language. Make sure we get to the board before the first reading. Okay. Good. Any questions on policies?
Questions on policies? All right, moving on to trip request.
The band has lofty goals to go to state finals next year in Detroit, and I 100% am looking forward to that. So it's a request for an overnight trip for the band to go. Quite frankly, they do this every year, but you just don't know what time they're going to perform. If they have a 3 o'clock performance, they probably won't. But last couple of years, they've had a 8 a.m. or a 7:45 or early morning, and they go the night before. So we'll see how that plays out. But this is a request for them to go.
Any questions on the trip request?
Mr. Vanderwall is always on top of it, the requests.
Well, let's be very honest. That wasn't the case.
Okay.
There was a
A
time
few years
when he
ago.
wasn't.
Before my time.
Yes.
Before your time.
Believe me,
You would not
there,
have said that.
he was the topic of conversation several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
We almost stopped them from going.
Yeah, you did.
We had a special
And ever
board meeting to
since
approve
then,
one.
we've gotten them really early.
He's learned.
Yeah, now we know.
Now we know.
We almost learned the hard way.
Yeah. All right, next up is board goals. So in your attachment, we had a thing on board goals, and at the top, I just thought it might be helpful just to put responsibility of school boards in the state of Michigan. And then I did receive feedback from 4 people. Everyone's feedback is important and valued. And a couple of the things for board goals, we do already, like review the code of conduct. We do this every year. I guess we could make it a board goal, but it's something that we already do, so I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a board goal. But the general support, and I had the opportunity to talk to, Andrew called me as well, and Andrew sent me an email today, and I had to look it up. He wanted me to say something. I'm sorry, I was at work all day. I think he sent it to, give me just a second here, sorry, I should be more prepared.
Did you send it to all of us?
Did you send it to everyone?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so everyone's off then.
Just change one word.
Yeah,
I think his intention was to make sure everyone knew that's not that he doesn't want to create goals, but he felt that if the majority of the board members have decided not to, he didn't really want to spend time and effort at that point to detail something out.
What I think is important is that all board members have individual goals. I think that's really important. Now, Dr. Vanjak, one of the questions I had was, just because we were talking about cost for this upcoming superintendent evaluation training, is there a budget for board member training? Because if we all start attending classes and they're $99 here, $99 there, we all start attending a bunch of stuff, what's that gonna do to the budget?
So the answer is yes, there's a budget for the board.
Okay.
The answer is, we are not to the point of saying to the board, slow down. Any opportunities you have to grow professionally, we are able to support.
Okay.
There have been conversations about whether it's a state conference, whether it's a national conference. I think collectively as a board, we'd like to support any ideas that you may have within reason. That I think the board would also say within reason, that if somebody wants to take 40 classes this year, knowing that you're probably going to move out of the state a year later, that's probably not the idea. But if there are ways the board's like, I'd like to continue this, or other conversations around collectively, then the answer is yes, that we have a budget in place. There's a lot of grant dollars available that we've used for the board for training for those $99 classes. Some of them, there are $200 classes and 99 is covered by a grant. So we put our toe in the water, but there's plenty of room to swim.
So I certainly would encourage all board members to look at what they can do and to have some individual goals. I also think having all new elected board members complete the SEAB 100 classes should be an expectation for all new board members. Nick, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, when I had submitted a couple thoughts a couple months ago, and again, I found the 100 level classes helpful. So I think that should be an expectation, whether it's, I think that's the word Andrew used when I was talking to him, expectation, goal, whatever, semantics. And I think, Dawn, you had mentioned before the past, youth attendance in conferences, found them somewhat helpful, perhaps. Again, whether that's a goal or an expectation, I don't know, but I think it doesn't have to necessarily be all 7, but if we set up some type of a rotation or something like that where some of us go report back to the rest of the crew at a work session or a board meeting, what we learned. I think that's something we could look to do too. We'd be on board for that.
Any other comments? History is a great teacher. And because this was begun back in September as a follow-up to some of the SOAR data we had, and because I was in the particular group that was looking at a lot of the staff surveys, I was probably the one who initiated it. I would like to read from the approved minutes from September 18 that said the board discussed setting goals for the board. It was suggested to develop goals from the board's code of conduct that is signed annually. The board will discuss items 1 to 5 in the code of conduct at their next work session and the rest of the items at their future work sessions. From those discussion, goals will be determined. And then on April 11, we approved the minutes from our March 25 work session shortly after we'd had the board's self-assessment. And that says in part, it was determined that each board member would consider goals and submit their suggestions to Dr. Cooper. At the next work session, the board will decide 2 or 3 goals to set.
Like I said, we do have a couple review code of conduct, advocate for new members of the board to complete the 100 serious CDA classes. Those are, if you want to make those board goals, we certainly can. Ken, you had put down the board will complete the MASB administered self-assessment. We've done that. If you want to do those as board goals, we could. The code of conduct is something we've done every year that I've been on the board.
I guess it comes down to like how formal do we want to make this? Because I asked like some other board members I know in other districts, they're like, we don't have goals. There's like kind of unwritten expectations of what you should do, but like in terms of every year we vote, like no, you've got your code of conduct, you've got your strategic plan. That's your goals that everything should drive. So it's just.
And the code of conduct is our expectation that we have set for ourselves. The piece that's missing, that again, this is not something I'm gonna beat over the head. I just know that there was an expectation that we provided, and I think somewhat rightly so, that we would look at ongoing relationships between staff and the board. And without any goal, you're not gonna have anything to reach for other than something very nebulous. And if that's what the majority of the board wants, then that's what they want. I want to be true to what we had previously said when it seemed more important at that point in time. And I don't want it to be perceived that that is no longer important because we have not established any goals around that particular issue.
So I think it still remains very important, and as I have asked for Dr. Vanderjack different things that the board can attend to, and he has provided this stuff, and board members have been actively going out. So I think we have been doing some things. again, like Nick said, it's how formal do you want to be? I've sat on other boards. It is not something that is, I would say, normal to have board goals. I don't think, and I don't know, I know Mark's been on the board a long time, Ken's been on the board a long time. And you have said, in the past, we haven't had board goals. I do think it's very important that individuals have goals.
Yeah, I'd add a couple of thoughts. So a couple of years ago, and it was informal, back to the formality point, but a couple of years ago, we kind of set up an informal board goal of having an onboarding manual. Thank you. That was something we said we wanted to do, and now that largely fell on me as president, but nonetheless, it was something that was important that I thought was important to the board, so we set it up and implemented it. Now, it wasn't to my recollection, a formally written down goal. Could have been, but I don't remember. So there's that. I think that, to me, again, whether you're a person or a board or a classroom or a church committee or whatever, the process of self-reflection as an entity, again, a person or a board, whatever, and then the thinking of continuous improvement, how we can get better, how we can do better, and then setting up goals to say we want to be better is I think important. I think it has value. I think that as a district, we're on a journey. 20 years ago, we didn't have a strategic plan. We didn't have superintendent goals. We didn't have a lot of things. So to me, comparing ourselves to other boards, either that we have sat on or in other districts, is not the right comparison. To me, it's what do we think we need as a board to continually get better and better and better so that we can lead the district more effectively. And some of those goals, I jotted a bunch down. Some of those maybe, let's take credit for some things that we've already done, because, hey, take the small wins, and you're on the journey, take the small wins, and awesome, we can tell the community we have done some things like this, this, and this. And then let's set some things for the future that we can target and we can work toward. Some of those things may be about the relationships with teachers, with staff, principals, or whatever, and we fold some of those in. I think, we didn't really go there, I think, at least in the goals that I jotted down. But again, my point is, no matter what entity you are, a person, a board, a committee, a church, a classroom, whatever, self-reflection, continuous improvement, and saying, well, how do we get better? How do I get better? So I agree with you, Dr. Hooper, that self-reflection as a personal goal and how can I get better. I just happen to believe that this board is at a point in our journey of growth that setting up some goals that say, well, we strive for this as well as a board to help us lead the district better is important. Now, as Andrew said, and as has been mentioned, if the majority of the board was like, no, we're not going to do that, it's not, well, we'll do personal expectations and we can kind of continue on the path, then so be it. Because our code of conduct says we have a discussion, we discuss and debate the discussion, or discussion and debate the topic, and if the majority says, no, we're not going to go forward, then so be it. Again, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. Those are my strong personal feelings, but that's where I'm at on this. So.
Mark and Greg, I haven't heard any feedback from you guys.
Well, respectfully, I think that I'd like to take what Ken just said and said, if the consensus isn't there from the board, it's not a hill to die on. I don't think the consensus is here from the board. I'm one of them that doesn't believe it's necessary, and that doesn't mean that I don't do any self-reflection or look at from meeting to meeting, from subject to subject, from every meeting that I have with people, that I don't try to do the best that I possibly can. But I'm not an advocate for us having any more goals, and I'd really like to put it to rest one way or another tonight, so we don't have to talk about it anymore. I want to work on making the district better, and I think we've been doing better as a team. I do think the things that you said about the 100 classes are very good, and I'm incorporating that. I've taken a couple of them, I'm going to take a couple more. So I appreciate that also. But I'm done talking about it.
I think I've said all I wanted to say about it. If the board had a clear and measurable goal they wanted to vote on, I'm okay with that. But apart from having it be very, very clear and very, very measurable, I think we can be fine following our sort of strategic plan.
All right, then I would encourage everyone to develop some personal goals, and we will move forward. All right. Why don't we go ahead and do a roundtable?
I'm all set. Stay dry. Dry down over here.
Slightly now. That's
We're all set. I'm sorry. We're still working on collecting the Swiss data, which we requested. We're still working on making sure we get it the right way and quality data. But that's still noted as something like that.
Okay. So a couple of things to add. So the PLC discussion tonight, thank you, Amy, and Kathy's here. But again, pushing the district forward, continuous improvement. How can we do better? I mean, just really important. And tied to that, in board briefs last Friday, the update on alternative education. Again, all means all, pushing, finding opportunities and developing opportunities so all kids can succeed and achieve their best. So thank you to the team for what you've done in that area. Again, as we continue to push forward. Some littler stuff. It's not little. It's not day to day. I'll just say it. The work of the Ottawa County Road Commission. Important. The data would say one thing. This is one where the data isn't the thing that's going to drive it, right?
So the conversation with the Ottawa County Road Commission was that the data does not support a traffic light.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we don't allow students to cross there.
Right, exactly.
And it's almost like, don't do this during school before or after. Do this on a Friday night at about 6 p.m. before a 7 p.m. football game and tell me how many kids are going across the street.
Yeah.
We have nearly 600 kids that live in the subdivision across the street that we transport to and from school because we don't want them crossing the street. That's one measure, but we don't transport those kids on a Sunday afternoon to go use Georgetown's playground. Or they want to go get ice cream at the corner, or those are variables out there. So we're working with them, and we'll tell you the highlight of it was they did not deny the request, they tabled it, which I was fully expecting a denial. I went in there and thought, but it was worth the drive. So, yeah.
What data are they looking at?
So we asked them to do a study on the corner of 40th and Baldwin,
Right.
and if you go over to that intersection, there are curb cuts in the sidewalk that looks like there should be a crosswalk right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, we will study it before school and after school with the volume of kids crossing. They did the same thing at 36th in Baldwin. And there were a handful of kids that crossed. And the reason why is because we bus all those kids across the street. Not that we're not going to continue, but at any point, if we said we have to be done with some of these bus routes because we don't have enough bus drivers, it makes the most sense. You're right across the street from your school. That's the data they're referring to right there. They did a one-day study for about 90 minutes in the morning and 90 minutes in the afternoon, which is warranted. I draw a parallel to a year ago, we did a traffic study at 32nd and the high school exit. And they wanted to do it on the Friday before Memorial Day because it worked into their schedule. We don't have school on the Friday before Memorial Day. So we got, and then they wanted to do it, we'll do it right afterwards. And meanwhile, we just graduated 500 seniors, so the parking lot's not half empty, but so there's all those variables, and so that's what they're doing.
One commissioner spoke to me and said they were thinking about a tunnel. Is that true?
So in Zealand, they have a tunnel that they built. The water table is different over in Zealand.
Okay.
They had to raise the road and then they put a tunnel, and it is a great idea, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
But the water table is different. There's a pond just to the south of that, southeast of that corner. There's a pond. So the water table looks different. There is a lot of clay over there, which changes it. The road would have to be raised. You go from a traffic light that's about $95,000 to several $1 million. And we are not paying for a toll.
You know, when Roxanne was here, she tried to get the speed limit lowered and had no success in doing that. And I can't understand, it's a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit through there,
They don't plan on changing the speed limit.
which I don't understand at all.
It's a 5-lane road, I don't think they can change the speed limit on a 5-lane road. However, to your point, Mr. Davis, we are putting up traffic. There's a whole other issue with that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take all this time up, but there's a whole other issue with that location of the school because you can put your speed zone signs within 1,000 feet of the school. If you come down 40th and you turn, I would say east on Baldwin, you don't even see the school zone sign because it's on the other side of the intersection. So we want to put another one. They said, well, you can't put it too close. And so we're having those discussions also. Not just one that says speed zone, but one that flashes red and blue. Is that the right colors? I should know that. No, but that flashes the right colors that basically say, you know, check your speed, check it now. And we're going to put those up. We're doing it right now at Forest Grove and Bauer. It could be the 5-6 building. We're trying them out before we buy 9. There's a total of 9 based on how they're located. We want to put 4 of them up now, and then we'll put more up at Baldwin. But that's on top of a traffic light. That's not in lieu of a traffic light.
And to your point.
Sorry.
No, this is why I wanted to. And to your point about the speed limit, because it's a 5-lane, that's dictated by the state now.
Yeah.
I did see there's some legislation being talked about to give local communities more control over setting speed limits. Because I agree with you, Mr. Davis, that 55 down that road is crazy. It's
And
crazy.
55 is still a suggestion. Those college kids do that.
And they're going to die faster than that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and on top of this, so just to add insult to injury, 48th is being tore up along, pretty much all along 48th from Van Buren. I think I'm pointing the right way. Van Buren all the way down. So Unity is going to be a mess, and Mr. DeGroat knows that. And it's a 3-year project on water. So as it comes down, the suggested route is to go to Van Buren to 36th to Baldwin and back up. No offense. I'm not going to 36th, and I can go to 40th. Which means I'm going to go to 40th, then I'm going to go to Baldwin, and I'm going to try to turn left to go up to 48th to go to Grand Valley. If I'm turning left there, it's going to be a long back up. And I get that part, but so we're trying to do it sooner than later. But
So Mike, please, I know it's keep fighting with it.
Oh, I'm not done.
I know you're not done. And since you mentioned Unity, that was my last comment, was also thank you for maintaining that relationship with Unity and Hudsonville Christian in the way that you and the staff do. It's, they're our partners. We compete, but they're our partners as well. So thank you for your work in doing that. That's it.
Graduation, that's like Thursday.
Yes.
I mean, how exciting that we're to this point where we can have it at our own place.
Are you all going to make it? I know Mr. DeWitt's out of town. Do you all know where to go?
I was gonna ask.
I want us to meet at what time?
So graduation starts at 6. I honestly would be there no later than 5:30. I will ask Mr. Petrolia to send you a location of where is a good place to park. There are advantages and disadvantages to a good place to park. The advantages, it's a good place to park. The disadvantages, you're not getting out anytime soon after graduation. It's supposed to be a beautiful night. The graduates start, they congregate in the Aux Gym. They march down to be into the field house. There's overflow in the auditorium. It's going to be a great night. So please get there by 5:30. I think we're all meeting in what we consider the hospitality room there, but I'll check with Mr. Beal to make sure.
It's on the lower level.
It's on the lower level.
Yeah, there's a
so
separate
if you
door
park,
entry.
if you can park down below, you can come in there and go from there. We'll make sure that you know where to go and get the access to go from
And they're having someone basically being a crossing guard as well, correct?
there. We've got, our administrative team, they've been asked to be there.
Okay.
Some have conflicts, because quite frankly, some of them have graduates in other
Right.
districts, or they have nieces and nephews that might be graduating, but they've been assigned different areas. We have crossing, we have golf carts to bring senior citizens, we have special handicap entrance. It's going to be a beautiful night, so fortunately, the initial plan is everybody lines up at the main entrance to get in, which people will start lining up probably around 3:30 or so. Doors open at 5. We'll go from there.
Say, I live just down the street, so I'll be crossing the street, so I'm hoping that someone will keep you there safely. So you're welcome to park in my driveway if you
Because I'm
want.
parking my grandma's next door.
There you go, yeah. it's just very exciting, and I know it's a long time coming, but it's just gonna be special.
Yeah.
And, thanks to all the staff that's putting in extra work, being the first time here at our place. It's just exciting.
It's been a journey for 6 years to say
Yes.
we want to be able to graduate this building.
Through COVID, through all of it, so kudos to everybody who had a part in it, which is everyone on staff. And that's it.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to graduation as well and honors nights. How many students, was it 200, 100, 200 over a 4.0?
Over almost 100 and over a 4.0, but over 200 that were recognized in some capacity.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Great job, everyone.
I'm looking forward to being able to see for the first time in 60 years. Because of that, I will not be at the graduation because my second eye is being operated on Thursday. So, also, I want to say to Ken and Dawn, I appreciate the work that you put into the goals, and I'm not dismissive of that at all. I just didn't feel like it would be something that I want to spend a lot of time concentrating on, but thank you very much for being an advocate for what you believe in.
And nor am I implying, Greg,
No, I
that
understand
you're not
that.
self-reflecting
Right,
and working to
right,
complete.
right.
I'm not implying.
Yeah,
that.
and I didn't say that, I
Yeah.
want you to know I respect it.
Yep. Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bridges?
Okay. Yes. I just want to continue to advocate that the governor and legislature continue we're advocating they fund community colleges and higher ed from the general fund and not from the state school aid fund. It's the number is getting up right under $1 billion and any growth. We just this was a part of the promise of proposal A, that the school aid fund would be for K-12. So let's continue we appreciate all of you, continue to advocate for that. Thank you.
All right, I will put the motion for adjournment. Motion from Nick,
I'll support that.
support from Mark. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.